promising her that good things were waiting just around the corner. Emily was on her way to the bookstore where she worked part-time. Books had always been her escape, her companions, and sometimes her teachers. She had grown up with stacks of paperbacks on her nightstand, carrying her through adventures she hadn't yet lived in real life. Portland felt like the right city for her. Artsy, creative, and full of possibilities. But what she didn't know yet was that today would change her life forever. At the same time, across town, Daniel Miller, a 26-year-old architect, was rushing out of his apartment with his sketchbook under his arm. He had an easy smile, the kind that put people at ease, and a habit of getting lost in his own drawings. Portland was home to him too, though sometimes he dreamed of traveling to faraway cities and designing buildings that would stand tall for generations. But for now, his world was centered on coffee shops where he sketched, construction sites where he observed, and quiet walks across the bridges that connected the city. Fate, or maybe just coincidence, was about to cross their paths. Emily arrived at the bookstore, set her bag down behind the counter, and began sorting through new arrivals. She carefully placed novels on the shelves, humming softly to herself. Around noon, when the shop grew busier, the bell above the door rang. Daniel walked in, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. He wasn't looking for a book, at least not seriously. He had wandered in on his lunch break, drawn by the warm glow of the shop windows. Emily glanced up. Their eyes met for only a second, but something about him caught her attention. Daniel gave her a polite nod and walked toward the travel section. He picked up a book about European architecture, flipping through the glossy pages. Emily hesitated before walking over, smoothing the front of her cardigan. "Looking for something specific?" she asked with a friendly smile. Daniel looked up, returning the smile. "Just browsing. But I think I found exactly what I was hoping for." He held up the book. Emily laughed softly. "That one's a favorite around here. A lot of people dream of traveling to Europe after flipping through it." "Maybe someday," Daniel said, his tone light but thoughtful. "I'd love to see those old cathedrals and sketch them in person." Emily's heart warmed at the way he spoke, not just about traveling, but about creating, about seeing beauty in the world. They chatted for a few minutes about architecture, books, and even coffee shops nearby. Daniel eventually purchased the book, but before leaving, he paused. "I know this might sound sudden, but would you like to grab coffee sometime? I'd love to hear more of your book recommendations." Emily hesitated only a moment before answering. "I'd like that." And just like that, their story began. Their first date was at a small cafe near the river. Emily wore a pale blue dress with a cardigan, simple but elegant, while Daniel arrived in his usual jeans and button-up shirt, carrying his sketchbook. They sat at a table by the window, sipping lattes while the world outside bustled on. Conversation flowed easily. They talked about favorite authors. Emily loved Jane Austen and contemporary novels, while Daniel admitted he secretly enjoyed mystery thrillers. They discovered they both loved hiking, though Emily admitted she was slower on the trails. Daniel laughed and promised he'd never leave her behind. At one point, Daniel pulled out his sketchbook and showed her quick sketches of bridges and cityscapes. Emily leaned closer, amazed at his talent. "These are incredible," she said sincerely. "Thanks," Daniel replied, his cheeks slightly pink. "I just like capturing the way things feel. Buildings, streets, even people sometimes. It's like holding a moment in place." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "That's how writing feels to me. It's about holding a moment, but with words instead of lines." The afternoon passed quickly, and neither of them wanted it to end. Daniel suggested a walk along the river, and Emily agreed. The water sparkled under the sunlight, and the cherry blossoms scattered petals along the path. It felt like something out of a storybook. As they walked, Emily felt her nervousness ease. There was something genuine about Daniel, something that made her feel safe and understood. For Daniel, Emily's laughter had already become his favorite sound. When they finally said goodbye, Daniel asked if he could see her again. Emily smiled, her heart racing, and said yes. Over the next few weeks, Emily and Daniel's lives intertwined more and more. They explored farmers' markets together, sampled food trucks in the city, and even spent rainy afternoons reading in cozy corners of the bookstore. Their dates were simple, yet meaningful, filled with laughter, thoughtful conversations, and small acts of kindness. One evening, Daniel invited Emily to a local art exhibit. He had helped design part of the gallery's layout, and he was proud to show it to her. Emily dressed in a soft green dress, and when Daniel saw her, he nearly lost his words. At the gallery, they wandered past paintings and sculptures, discussing colors, textures, and the way art told stories without words. "You see things differently than most people," Emily told him, admiring how his eyes lit up when he described architecture. "And you make me want to see things through your words," Daniel replied, his voice gentle. The night ended with them sitting on a bench outside the gallery, the city lights twinkling around them. Emily leaned her head on his shoulder, and Daniel didn't move, afraid to break the perfect moment. Not everything was effortless, though. Emily sometimes doubted herself. Her unfinished manuscript weighed on her, and she worried she wasn't good enough as a writer. Daniel, too, carried his own challenges. His architectural firm was demanding, and he often faced pressure from senior designers who dismissed his ideas as too ambitious. One afternoon, after a particularly difficult day, Daniel showed up at the bookstore looking drained. Emily noticed immediately and quietly closed the shop early, since her manager had already left. They walked to the park nearby, and Daniel admitted his frustrations. "I feel like I'm stuck," he said, staring at the ground. "Like my ideas don't matter." Emily took his hand gently. "They matter to me," she said softly. "You matter to me." Daniel looked at her, his tired expression softening. "You always know what to say." "Not always," Emily admitted. "But I do know that you're talented, and one day people will see that. Don't give up." Her encouragement touched him more than she realized. And later, when Emily confessed her fears about her writing, Daniel reminded her that stories were meant to be shared, even imperfect ones. They became each other's support system, lifting one another when doubts and struggles crept in. As summer approached, Daniel planned a special date. He surprised Emily with a picnic on the hill overlooking the city.